Okay, what we should do now is try and take what we've been talking about and look at it through the vein of looking through Daniel's glasses. Take a look at how this is what we've seen for the prophecy to be coming to pass over all these years. This is the how it happened.
Yeah, what's interesting is that no one ever really predicted the fall of the economy, the desperate nature of the empire. It fits because of the outcome. You know, and in that sense, it's all completely fresh. And you know, we predicted that 3 horns would be uprooted because Daniel says 3 horns are uprooted. It's obvious that those rulers came to present themselves on the stage of history as Iraq and Libya and Syria. They were the rulers that were really standing in the way of this new peace agreement that the other ruler had proposed. So that was, you know, we prophesied that almost 20 years ago, or predicted from the prophecy that those 3 would be the ones that were uprooted. That's what that really meant, that it would be those 3 kingdoms in the Middle East. No, I don't remember anybody else saying that really at that time.
Nobody's saying it today.
Well, that's hard to believe that one of these, you know, we've had a few that I've noticed, like, what's his name, Hagee, who have jumped on board our story over the years. Hagee used to talk nothing about the Middle East, and then all of a sudden, after sending him our information, he wrote a book about how you need to focus on the Middle East. But he's still not focused on exactly the things that we are. But anyway, it just shows that we've lasted long enough for the other people to have to turn their view toward our story rather than the other way around. But who saw that the market would crash? Who saw that the banksters would be the real culprits behind it all, that were driving all of this right now, that it's really more to do with banking interests and the way bankers, their interplay with oil and with governments and with setting up their ultimate end game on the planet. That's what's really bringing this around. That's why the Muslim Brotherhood is an acceptable partner, because from the banking standpoint, they're a good partner. From the banking standpoint, they represent a majority of the people. They'll be in power for the foreseeable future, for a generation or more. So you're dealing with the same element who, I think from our standpoint, we're counting on the fact they recognize that we're the force putting them in power. We're the ones allowing these other regimes to be taken down. We're the ones funding and assisting the resistance and telling the governments that if they fire on their people, we'll be in there to help the people. So we're facilitating this Arab Spring, which is nothing more than handing the governments over to a different regime. We're making a regime change in the region, and that plays into the prophecy because both the Jewish and Quranic prophecies with the whole messianic timing, because the Quran has the Mideast that show up to lead the world of the Muslim at the end of the time when they finally exterminate the Jews and I suppose expel the infidels, meaning the West, America, from those lands, Israel. They have their own prophecies about that coming to pass. Mm-hmm. And they, depending on which sect, like our denominations, they have a Messiah, a Mahdi for the Sunnis and a Mahdi for the Shias, and those guys have to fight to determine who's the real Mahdi. So they already have a war that they're expecting amongst themselves for who is the power, and that is expected to result in the unification of their lands under the actual Mahdi, whichever one wins. So they're expecting war on behalf of their Mahdi, who will be victorious and lead their people in a unified fashion. And so, as far as the prophecies go of both the Jewish, because now the Jewish have the Messiah coming to defeat an enemy who has become so strong in this Muslim empire that they have decided to destroy the Jewish synagogue or temple and start annihilating the Jews. Well, that hasn't
ever put away the sacrifice thing.
Well, and that has they're not even sacrificing yet. So we still have to see in the Jewish prophecy, the Jews have to start sacrificing, and then the Arabs, their half brother, this people of the prince that shall come, have to destroy the sanctuary. So, and they have a war coming up to see who's going to lead their world unified against the infidels. So that's the interesting thing. How like I say, how America going broke plays into that is a little bit, to me, still. It's a subliminal, it's a sublime fact that didn't seem to be very important, but now we can see it obviously is. The whole Western world's going broke. All of the Western nations are having their citizenry turned upside down, and it's not because they have to. That's the part we've learned. It's happening because the financial gangsters, the banksters, the financial terrorists are putting this pressure on them to put these austerity measures on the public so that all the social money stops going out, so that they can run these countries the way they used to run America before the Great Depression, where there was no regulation. They were self-regulated. The oligarchs that ruled the world, and they did what they wanted. And the capitalism was strictly based on their own competition and the market for the public who worked for them, right? But those public had no rights. They had no unions. There was no such thing as overtime or a right to medical benefits or a right to vacation or any of that thing. And so that's what they want. That's what they want to go back to. That's been on the books for 100 years, since the Carnegie Foundation was doing studies of that sort. And then now into the modern day, we have the vision for, what is it called? The Vision for a New America, or the something for a New America. And that's a very recent study by the same sort of elitist think tanks that try and figure out, what's our direction going to be. And of course, that direction is to these corporate schemes, this corporate structure, and this privatization of everything, so that the few corporations own literally everything: the banks, the schools, the prison, the roads, the bridges, the toll booths, everything. They own it, they run it for their benefit, and they compete with each other. I suppose when a new Murdoch comes along big enough, then there's some competition, and until then the Murdoch that's there runs it the way he wants it. And that's what we have today. We have a few big companies, but they're so big that they find a way to fight with each other on some fronts, but then just to coexist on others, right? And so that seems to be the world they're trying to go to, and how that intersects with this peace has always been a mystery, because we never saw this coming. The peace was coming anyway.
Oh, yeah.
The Middle East was moving toward dividing Jerusalem, creating an Arab state, a caliphate under one Arab ruler that will essentially be the entire Arab Brotherhood. The entire Arab nations will be devoted to this one king, who will be the Mahdi, who wins the fight of the Mahdi. And so that is even yet to come. And that's the guy who goes and wants to destroy the Jews at some point, because now he's got the United Arab Nations. They're the most powerful thing on earth. They own all the oil. They've got the largest standing army for the most part, or at least the most committed. And all they really want is to get the darn Jews off their land. And the Americans, apparently, from what I'm starting to see now, we're getting more and more in a position to have to capitulate, because we're part of this world government that we formed. The world government finally decides these people are just too much. And although I still believe that when he finally goes after the Jews to exterminate them, that's when the rest of the world moves on him. That's what creates Armageddon. Is because now he's gone a little too far. Extermination wasn't in the plan. And he says, that's okay. This is what Allah's doing in the world. We're taking back our land, and then we'll negotiate. Once I've killed all these people, we'll talk about what we're going to do next. That seems to be the vibe of the prophecy, simply from the standpoint that they make peace, it only lasts for a while, he takes over their temple, and they run for their lives.
It seems that he doesn't rise to that point of having that Mideast, so to speak, that complete control, until that midpoint,
right,
when that beast is let out of the pit. And then all of a sudden now he's transformed from this benevolent king who shared the wealth to the other side of the coin, the guy who now is going to take over and run it all. And who can make war with him?
Right, right.
And so...
Well, so I still say we have a ways to grow into that in the world. We see it coming now. But to get to the point where that Middle Eastern ruler has the power to seize, to get to the point where he is confirmed as the Mahdi, I mean, yeah, it's...
3.5 years.
After, right. So, that's conceivable. We're getting into the neighborhood where these kind of things can happen. Again, I'm not sure how the crashing of the American system plays into that, except perhaps to simply weaken our position. But we're not weakened. This is the whole thing. The military-industrial complex has gotten more money under Obama than they've ever gotten in history. The military's stronger. The money that does come from the people that are working, the 80% of the workforce that's still working, is still supporting the military complex in high cotton. I mean, we have 5 wars going. We got the greatest budget for CIA, undercover intelligence gathering. Our budget is the largest in the world. And we have the wars going on. And we're putting austerity measures into place that ensure for the future the military budget won't be hurt by the people that have all the money. It'll be taken from the privatizing the public sector, meaning it will be taken by selling out the public domain, selling out the things that still belong to the public. They're courts. I mean, the judges already work for them, but the courts theoretically still belong to us. Well, no, now the courts themselves will belong to they'll be privatized so that we rent the court from them for our dishonest judges to make rulings in. They don't even come to work in our buildings anymore. They come to work in their buildings. I mean, that's where it's heading. And I would feel like an outright crackpot if it wasn't for the fact that I'm learning all this stuff anew from some of the smartest people I've heard speak out there, the Michael Hudsons and the Noam Chomskys and the Howard Zinn, who just passed away, and all these other, Michael Kaiser, who's been right all these years. These guys have been right on. And so, again, I can't really explain how the crash of our system fits into the crash of, or the coming together of the prophetic end. Why do we need to go broke to make peace?